Welcome, one and all, back to the Viper's Nest, and thank you for joining me in the truck once again on this misty, cloudy, overcast day. So today, we're going to attempt to answer an age-old question. What is the best order in which to watch the Star Wars films? Now, take note that I did not say what is the proper order in which to watch the Star Wars film, because well, I don't think there is one. There's no wrong answer to that, in my opinion. But what's the best way? The best way is what we're talking about. So this is just my opinion. Every Star Wars fan has their own particular opinion, and this is mine. This is what I think is the best way to watch the Star Wars movies. And when I say that, I'm strictly speaking about the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. So, what is the best way? Well, before I get into that, I need to ask you guys a favor. So, if you're going to undertake this, I'm not going to call it a challenge, but if you're going to sink the time in to experiment and see if my way is the best way, I need to ask you to do one thing. I need you to go into this pretending that you have never seen anything Star Wars before. You need to watch it through the lens of it's your first time ever seeing it, which I know is kind of difficult. You're never gonna recapture the old feeling of, experiencing Star Wars for the first time, but do your best to. So take, like, the comics, the books, the TV shows, the sequel trilogy, like, put all of that out of your mind. For this experience, the only thing that exists is Star Wars Episode 1 through 6 and nothing else. I'll try to explain why that's necessary. So, the proper order, in my opinion, the best order in my opinion, is this. New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, and then Return of the Jedi. I'll pause right here if you guys want to go watch that right now. I'll use this pause to take a drink, and you can use this pause to pause the video until you come back. Alright, you're back, or you never left? Cool. So, let's get into it. Why this particular order? Why would you want to watch the movies in this disjointed fashion? Well, I don't have enough time to go into every single little detail about the movies. Plus, my memory is not perfect, and I haven't had the chance to do my yearly Star Wars watch-a-thon yet. So, I could be mistaken about a few things. I don't think I am, but if I say something that's not necessarily correct, I apologize. Just try to take it in stride. So, excuse me. Watching the films in this order is what I've seen referred to on the internets as the Godfather cut. And what this particular order does is it lends a little bit more weight to some of the more dramatic moments, some of the big, very famous reveals we get in the movies, while also doing a little bit to kind of fill in some plot holes that were left by the original trilogy. And the original trilogy does in fact have plot holes, like the biggest one being that, when Obi-Wan told Luke that Darth Vader killed Anakin Skywalker. And I mean, they did eventually go into that in the Obi-Wan show, and I could do an entire fucking video about how they set up and resolved all that shit, but that is not this video. That's for a later date. So, like, when Episode 4, A New Hope, came out, like, at that point in the writing, Darth Vader was not Anakin Skywalker. They were, in fact, two separate and distinct characters. And then, they made the decision to, soft retcon that in Empire Strikes Back so that Darth Vader was, in fact, Anakin Skywalker. So, let's, this is going to be just me rambling, but I'm going to try to give it a bit of structure so that I'm not all over the place. So, let's go through it. So, like, you start off, you watch episodes 4 and 5, New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. You go through that, see Luke's journey, and then at the end, obviously, you get the big reveal that Darth Vader is, in fact, Anakin Skywalker, Luke's father. So, before we go back in time and witness Anakin's journey, let me ask some questions about the original trilogy. So, again, pretending you have seen no other media other than the original trilogy, and there's nothing else outside the trilogy for you to have consumed to give you context to this. What do we actually know about Darth Vader? And the answer to that is, honestly, not a whole hell of a lot. We know he's the big bad, mostly, the right-hand man of the Emperor, who we don't even see in Episode 4, only hear him talked about. We know Vader is big, scary, ruthless, willing to, punish severely those he considers underneath him, like when he chokes out that guy at the Moff Council and Tarkin has to tell him to stop. But other than that, as a person, we know nothing about Vader. Anything we think we might know about Vader comes mostly from Obi-Wan in that movie. And we know that apparently he was a former Jedi Knight who went dark side and betrayed Anakin Skywalker and killed him. And that's it. That's all we really get in Episode 4. Like, we can infer some stuff that, like, obviously he's got supernatural powers, and he's the only one, other than Obi-Wan, who has supernatural powers. It makes sense. That was confirmed. They were both Jedi. And we know that he at least respects Tarkin enough to listen to him when Tarkin tells him to stop choking that other Moff. So we know that, like, in the hierarchy of the Empire, like, him and Tarkin are probably equals. There's some wiggle room on either side, but generally they they respect each other's decisions and do their best to kind of stay out of each other's way. We also know that Vader's a pretty damn good fighter pilot, as we see in the Death Star battle. And then the movie ends, and other than that stuff, we are really none the wiser. So let's go into Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. We see Vader doing more badass Vader things. It's also the first time we see Vader wield a lightsaber. And we also find out through the Emperor, who we also see for the first time in this movie, that apparently the offspring of Anakin Skywalker is still alive, to which Vader's like, excuse me, what? That's impossible. Why does he say that? Well, we then find out at the tail end of the movie that Darth Vader is, in fact, Anakin Skywalker. And he tries to recruit Luke to the dark side. So this gives us a little bit more insight to Vader, again, strictly speaking from the viewpoint of the movies and only the movies. So what does Vader do when he finds out he has a son? Well, he tries to go and capture his son, and he does not go about this in the way that, a normal, average person would. I figure if you're any kind of normal human being and you find out late in life that you have a kid who's now in his 20s, what do? I don't know, maybe try to call him up, offer to go out to dinner, have a talk, maybe go get some drinks if you're the drinking type, and try to get to know one another, right? That's what a normal person would do, I imagine. What does Vader do? Well, Vader finds out he has a son. He runs like a big con where he kidnaps his son's friends and tortures his son's friend to get Luke to come to Cloud City. And then once Luke is at Cloud City, what does Vader try to do? Well, one, he tries to freeze him in carbonite. Not a very dad move to do, I don't think, even though, not gonna lie, I'd like to do that to my kids sometimes. Don't take that out of context. They're toddlers. They're chaos. Whatever, don't think I'm a bad parent. I do my best to be a good parent. But, so when he fails to get Luke in the carbonite, he then proceeds to beat the shit out of Luke, chop off his hand, then tell Luke that he is his father, and then tries to get him to join him so they can kill the Emperor. He doesn't try to get Luke on board so he can, spend time or get to know Luke. That kind of went out the fucking window when, Vader beat the shit out of him and cut off his hand. And kidnapped and tortured his friends. So, he's like, yeah, join me and we can overthrow the Emperor. Like I said, it's not because he wants to spend time with him, it's because, he wants to use Luke as a weapon to overthrow the Emperor, which is also another question we're going to come to in a little bit. And then, he shows maybe a little bit of disappointment and, maybe a bit of annoyance when, instead of going with him, Luke just kind of throws himself off of that tower and manages to survive the fall to the bottom of Cloud City. So Vader is like very obviously not torn up about this. He just kind of like, that's fucking annoying. And then does some forcey mind games to, try and be like, Luke, hey, like, come on, man, like, join me. It doesn't work. Shocker. So we now know that Vader is not winning any Father of the Year awards. He has no trouble beating the crap out of his own kid and mutilating him. And then he has, like, the fucking balls to be like, hey, join me so I can use you to kill the Emperor. Like, not exactly things that a good person would do. And that also leads us into the third thing. Why the hell does Vader want to kill the Emperor? Like, we don't, at this point, like, if you're just going through the original trilogy, like, we don't fucking know why. Like, Vader has it in for Palpatine, whose name we don't even learn in the movies. Like, maybe he's a little bit annoyed that, maybe Palpatine fucking knew that I had kids out there somewhere and didn't tell me. Like, but that'd be more of like again, from a normal perspective, like, that'd be a very angry phone call. It'd be like, excuse me, dude, why the fuck didn't you tell me I have kids? That is a dick move. And then, like, when we actually meet Palpatine in Return of the Jedi, like, up until the end where he's like, yes, Luke, kill your father and take his place at my side. Like, Palpy's actually, like, he's very polite and cordial and respectful towards Vader. Like, when they first meet after however long on the second Death Star, like, Palpy, like, checks in with Vader. He's like, hey, I can sense something is troubling you, my old friend. He's being very low-key bro about it. Be like, hey, man, like, I can tell something's up. Like, what's bothering you, man? Like, come on, talk to me. Like, he seems like he's obviously an evil overlord, but he also seems like a pretty alright dude. So we have no fucking idea why the hell Vader would want to kill this guy and take power, other than the fact that Vader's just kind of a power-hungry asshole. Then we find out that Palpy really doesn't care all that much for Vader. Too terribly much at the end when he's trying to goad Luke into killing him. And even during that fight, when Luke is like, Dad, like, look, chill, I'm not going to fucking fight you, man. Like, we don't have to do this. And Vader's like, alright, if you're not going to fight, then I'm just going to kill you myself. And then he goes a dickish step further and be like starts reading Luke's mind. He's like, oh, so you have a sister. Okay, well, maybe if you won't turn to the dark side, she will. And then that causes Luke to, snap and beat the shit out of Vader, which, I can lie, Vader, he kind of had it coming, bud. So we know now that Vader is kind of a power-hungry dick who doesn't really think too terribly much about turning against his own master, who, at least to our eyes, again, just through the lenses of the movies, seems like he's at least Vader's friend. So that makes Vader even more of an asshole. And also, we know that Vader knows he's in the wrong, and depending on how you look at the scene, this one's up for debate, he kind of just doesn't care or doesn't want to get off the dark path. Like when Luke confronts him on Endor, is it? Yeah, it is Endor. He's like, hey, like, Dad, like, it's not too late. Like, come back to the light side. And Vader just kind of says, it's too late for me. Like, so he either doesn't think he can, doesn't care, or straight up does not want to leave the dark side. So all of these things paint a very negative picture of who Vader is. And then you get the very cinematic twist at the end when Palpy's torturing Luke, and then Vader turns against him and pitches him down the fucking Death Star shaft, and then dies shortly after himself, which, while it does make for very good cinema, and that was like almost as big of a shock that Vader would do that for his son, like, that's right up there with him actually letting Luke know that Vader is his father. So, like, it's very good from a movie standpoint, but it still leaves a lot of questions from a storytelling standpoint, because, if Vader didn't care about, like, beating up and crippling his kid, and then fighting him again, and then taunting him, being like, if you don't work out, I'm just gonna go get your sister, none of these things really lend themselves to the twist when you actually start thinking about it, because Vader didn't really care, at least in my eyes, up until this point, and then he just kind of decides in the moment, maybe I shouldn't let my son get tortured and killed. Alright, and I'll do the good thing. Yeah. Works as a movie, but leaves a lot to be desired as storytelling. So, like, that's some of the big stuff that watching the Godfather cut really kind of helps to fill in. So let's rewind it back to episodes 4 and 5, and we get all the way to the end. You murdered my father. No, I am your father. No, that's not true. That's impossible. No, all that good stuff. Then we jump back to episode 1, and we see the very, very beginning, almost literally, of Anakin Skywalker's life. And then we get to watch through the original trilogy, where we can be like, oh, Anakin Skywalker, that little kid, that's Darth Vader, and Senator Palpatine. That's the guy, that's the Emperor. So you get to see the journey of both Palpy and Vader as they go through, like, the life events of the original trilogy, and we get to see Anakin grow up, become a Jedi Knight, and we get to know much more about him as a person before he went into the Darth Vader suit. So we get to learn that, like, Anakin, bit of a hothead, has a nasty temper on him, especially after the Sand People killed his mom, and then he killed the Sand People. Like, you can see where Anakin starts to go wrong as a Jedi. That's kind of like the whole fucking point of the prequel trilogy. So knowing all of this about Anakin it fills in the blanks of who Darth Vader is as a character. So, like, what we learned about Anakin and his fall to the dark side is that, Anakin has people he cares about. Like, he's got Obi-Wan, Palpy, he's got Padme and their unborn children, and he starts out as, like, not quite a model Jedi Knight, but still a very, very worthy Jedi Knight. Like, he's a badass warrior, absolutely amazing star pilot, good mechanics, he likes to fix things, hates sand, it's rough, coarse, it gets everywhere. We fucking know. So we learn that Anakin is really not a bad guy. What leads him to the dark side is, the absolute clusterfuck that is the Jedi Order, because, yikes, do they drop the ball on some shit there. And not even necessarily about, like, them deciding not to make Anakin a Jedi Master, which, looking at it from the outside makes sense. They know that Anakin is good friends with Palpy, and they know that Palpy is trying to move on up in the Old Republic Senate. So they're like, okay, like, he's obviously trying to, put his guy on the Jedi Council, so then he can use Anakin to forward his own agenda. Like, it's not a bad thing. They see what, like, they obviously see what's going on. At least Mace Windu does. But the way they handled that is like, man, come on. Like, they really should have just sat Anakin down and be like, rather than just being, we grant you a seat on the council, but we do not grant you the rank of master. What? How can you be on the council and not be a master? That's ridiculous. It's unheard of. It's unfair. Take a seat, Skywalker. Could have handled that better. Like, Mace Windu could have pulled Anakin aside and been like, hey, man, like, look, we know you want to be a master. We're going to let you on the council, but we also know, like, dude, you got to be able to see what Palpatine's doing here. That's why we're not going to make you a master. Like, you fucking understand it. Anakin probably would have still been like, this fucking sucks, but I get it, because Anakin was not stupid. Sorry, this is becoming like a massive story critique, and I'm really not meaning it to be. The point is, the Jedi Council does not make good decisions during this movie. Like, even Yoda, like, Anakin goes to Yoda when he starts getting the visions of Palpatine dying. He's like, yeah, man, like, I see Palpatine, or not Palpatine, Padme. I see Padme, like, dying, like, every night. And Yoda's like, you gotta be fucking careful of the future, bro. It's like, well, no fucking shit, you gotta be careful of the future. How about you tell him how he can, like, avoid this, rather than, doing the stuff that comes to it, like, it actually fucking makes it happen. Force itself is kind of a dick on that one. That's not the point. Point is, Jedi don't make good decisions, a lot of which contributed to Anakin's fall to the dark side. Plus Palpy's own manipulations and all that stuff. But the point is, Anakin was never a, like, truly bad guy. He was a decent man who did some really fucked up stuff, essentially just out of desperation. Like, as a parent myself, I can kind of understand, like, okay, like, my wife is pregnant, I'm getting visions of her dying every night, like, that would take the forefront, like, that would supersede fucking everything, to the point where Anakin is like, okay, I will betray the Jedi, I will mass murder younglings, I will kill anyone and everyone and do anything I have to in order to save my family. Like, I get that. That's perfectly... It's not right, but it's definitely understandable from just a purely, emotional perspective. So Anakin does all the bad things, which unfortunately the Force did not warn him about. That directly led to, Padme and, in his own mind, and like as everyone else told him, his kids dead. And, him getting all of his limbs lopped off, horribly burned, locked in the Vader armor on life support, and then Palpatine's like, I'm sorry, Anakin, but in your anger, you killed Padme and the children. Which, yeah, so that's who Vader is and was. He was a man who, out of desperation, betrayed everything he knew and believed in order to attempt to save what he loved, and then, from his own perspective, he still fucking lost it all anyway. Which, makes the scenes where, like, Luke is trying to talk Vader, off the dark side ledge, essentially, and Vader just saying, it's too late for me. It's because he fucking knows, like, his own life taught him that what is going to happen is going to happen, and there is fucking nothing you can do about it, because, again, when he was Anakin, he tried to do something about it, and he betrayed everything he knew, and failed spectacularly at it. So, looking at it through that lens, at least to me, like, yes, Vader is this, awful, ruthless, powerful dark side entity, but, inside, he's also a completely broken and hopeless man, which makes more sense as to why he's, like, willing to actually stand by and let Palpy torture Luke for a good long time, because there's still that, that thing inside of him telling him, he's like, well, this is gonna happen. You can't fucking stop it, you fucking idiot loser, Anakin. Just sit by and let it happen. That's literally the only thing you could do. And then, of course, turns out it wasn't. He ends up saving Luke's life at the cost of his own. He did redeem himself, but that's why, at least to me, it took Vader so incredibly long to actually do the right thing. Whereas, anybody else, maybe, like, looking at it through a lens of almost anybody but Darth Vader, would be like, the second he finds out he has a son, that should have been, like, the hope that, led him back to the light, which in its own way it kind of did, but I don't know, if it were me, and I found out I had a son, I'd be like, okay, everything else, all this Empire bullshit, that's going on pause until I can, like, track my kid down and, like, talk to him, and, hopefully get to know him and mend, or at least start this father-son relationship. Back to the prequel trilogy. Also gives us one of the fucking biggest badonkers reveals, if you're watching it, through the Godfather cut, is when when Padme gives birth to the twins, Luke and Leia. It's like, one comes out, it's like, Luke, and then, there's another baby, and then, if you've never seen it before, you're like, wait, the fuck, what? There's two babies? Two babies? What's going on here? It's like, oh, it's a girl. Leia! Head explosion, because, man, that is a much better reveal than what we got, like, when I grew up watching these on VHS tapes, because, you know how you find out about, Leia in Return of the Jedi? It's like Luke and Ghost Obi are talking, and, they start, what is it? How does it happen? It's been a while. Oh, right, Yoda, like, in his dying breath, is like, there is another Skywalker. And then Luke's like, hey, Obi, like, Ghost Obi, fucks up with this other Skywalker thing. He's like, oh, yes, your twin sister, they were hid from your father at birth, so she remains safely anonymous. And then Luke's like, Leia! And it's like, wow, Luke, you really just kind of force-pulled that one out of your ass, didn't you? Which, looking at it, like, compared to the reveal at the end of Episode 3, that reveal in Return of the Jedi was just kind of fucking sucked. Like, I don't know how many people I've talked to who were younger than me, who, like, they grew up when all the Star Wars movies were already out, and I had to explain to some of these kids that's like, yeah, no, like, that's the scene right there where we found out about Leia being Luke's sister, and like almost to a person were like, that's how you found out? That's bullshit, man. And yeah, I mean, as much as I love the prequel trilogy, and I do, yeah, that reveal kind of fucking sucked. It was much more, like, impactful and, like, surprising if you watch it via the Godfather cut, where, like, the whole freaking time you did not know that Luke had a sister until you're, what is this, 5 movies in now, and then Padme gives birth to the twins. Much more shocking reveal, and much more, like, just well done in general. So then, after you have seen, you know, the first 2 of the original trilogy, and then all of the prequel trilogy, you get the entire emotional journey of Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader. It lends much more weight and impact to the things we see Vader do, and have already seen Vader do. So, like, you know, you get most of Luke's journey, the big reveal, and then rewind all the way back in time to watch all of Vader's emotional growth, like, you know, figurative and literal, I guess. He goes from, you know, young boy pod racing, which, yikes, to, you know, the man who pretty much single-handedly destroyed the entire Jedi Order. It makes Vader both more sympathetic and a whole hell of a lot more understandable at an emotional level if you watch it all that way. And then it culminates with Vader becoming, you know, Anakin again, which it's been argued for decades and still will be argued for decades that we didn't see Sebastian Shaw as the Force Ghost of Anakin in the new remastered versions of the original trilogy. And as far as watching the Godfather cut go, I kind of appreciate them editing him out and sticking in Hayden Christensen instead, because, like, as far as the Godfather cut goes, like, Hayden Christensen Anakin is the last time, you know, up until the end of Return of the Jedi, that we truly see Anakin Skywalker as Anakin Skywalker and not as Darth Vader, you know, apprentice to the Emperor and his main enforcer. So in a way, they are, despite the fact that they're the same person, Anakin and Vader are 2 very separate characters. So it would make sense that when he truly comes back to being Anakin Skywalker, that we would see him in the form of Hayden Christensen, because Hayden Christensen was the last time he was truly Anakin Skywalker. Although, I will say, watching literally any other, like, order or iteration of the Star Wars series, I would prefer Sebastian Shaw Force Ghost every single time, because that's also, like, that's the only time we get to really see that actor outside of, you know, all of his fucking crazy makeup, and it's nice to, just from, like, a filmmaking standpoint, be like, hey, like, this is what the guy inside the Vader suit looks like. And it's a very nice thing, from a movie perspective. Alright, I feel like I've covered everything I wanted to cover in this. Are there any other, like, super important moments that I missed that are enhanced by the Godfather cut? Not really. I don't think so. I think I got all the big stuff covered as to why I think this is the best way to watch the Star Wars series. Yeah, I don't really need to talk about anything else. I hit the big notes. Everything else, well, I mean, you probably have your own thoughts as to why this particular order of watch is good or bad. I'd love to hear about it. So put those in the comments below. It'd be great to see them. Really appreciate it. So I'm going to end it here. So thank you very much for hanging out and listening to me ramble. I appreciate it. A like and a subscribe would be much appreciated. See you on the next episode, and as always, have yourself a wonderful day.